A report has surfaced about the Cincinnati Reds being open to trading future Hall of Famer and Canadian baseball legend Joey Votto to Toronto if he were to ask for it. The fit may not be there, but it would be a storybook ending to what has been a great career for Votto. And finally, the Bats are sleepwalking through spring training, but Kevin Gausman dominated the Detroit Tigers today, so you won't want to miss this episode of Jay's Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, we got a lot to get into today. A bit of a quiet game from the Blue Jays' perspective, at least in the offense side of things. But there has been some news that surfaced, so we'll break that down first before we get into the game. But we want to thank you all for the support that we've gotten. Just been unreal, and we're only a few days away from opening day. Cannot wait for that.
Yeah, it's been great, and the news was kind of exciting. A lot of Jays fans were excited about it, and I guess any news is kind of good news at this time of the year, unless it's injury related, of course. But let's just get right into the video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the daily content. And like you said, and we'll discuss if Joey Votto is a fit in Toronto after reports surfaced by Jim Bowden today saying that he would be interested in uniting with a Canada team, and of course the Toronto Blue Jays. And here is the report. Jim Bowden tweeted that Nick Krall, the Reds GM, told us their plan is for Joey Votto to finish his career as a Red. However, if the Reds are out of it at the trade deadline and Votto came to them and asked if they would trade him home to Toronto, he said he would consider it under those circumstances. Now, we have a couple more screenshots from some fans' point of views on this. What is your point of view on this, and what are your thoughts on this report in general?
Well, at first, I mean, we just got to acknowledge that Joey Votto is a Canadian baseball legend, and put aside what he said a couple years ago about not caring about Canadian baseball and basically ripping into the Blue Jays out of nowhere. I mean, the question was about James Paxton throwing a no-hitter and what it means for Canadian baseball. Then he basically said, oh, yeah, I don't care about the Blue Jays, I don't care about Canadian baseball. So it was kind of blown out of proportion, and he apologized later for those remarks. And one of the fondest memories that I do have of Joey Votto is him playing in the World Baseball Classic in 2009 at the Rogers Center with Team Canada. They almost beat the United States, and I was only 9 years old at the time, but that was, I think, his second year in the league. He was already a 300 hitter. He was an MVP caliber player, and he did win the MVP the next year. So maybe 6 to 7 years ago, I would have been all over this. I would have said, yes, bring him home. It would have been much better than having Justin Smoke at first base every day or Chris Colabello at first base for the Blue Jays. But, I mean, he's past his prime. He's 39 years old. And the Jays got Brandon Belt, and he's going to fill that role that Joey Votto would have filled if they were to get him. So I don't think the fit is there, but the storyline is cool.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Brandon, if we didn't have Brandon Belt, and maybe could have made sense earlier in the offseason if we would have traded for him then. But obviously that doesn't line up with the whole trade deadline timeline. And Brendan Delaney put up a pretty funny tweet here saying, I know how Joey Votto could fit on the Blue Jays, and the only way is if you move Bo to second, Chapman to short, Vladdy to third, Joey Votto to first base with Brandon Belt as the DH. And this is, of course, a joke, kind of highlighting the fact that, and like many people,
I hope it's
yeah,
a joke.
like people have said on Twitter, that it's unfortunately probably not the best fit at this point. And like you said, for the past, few years, it could have been a great fit. We needed a left-handed hitter. Of course, he's past his prime a bit, but I don't know, a bit of a story. It would be a storybook ending, and maybe the Jays do it depending on what happens. Maybe some injuries happen or something that opens it up. But at the end of the day, I think he either stays a Red or gets traded to a different contender.
It would make sense for him to stay a Red, and he's even said it when he did make those comments about Canadian baseball. He said that I've grew up my whole entire baseball career in the United States. I didn't really get developed in the Canadian system, and that's true. You know, he left to go play in college, or he got drafted out of high school. I'm not quite sure, but he's been with the Reds for his whole career, and it would just make sense for him to finish up there and go into the Hall of Fame as a Red. I'm sure there's no doubt that he's going to do that, but he had a great 2021. He did not look good last year. He seemed to really slow down, but 2021 was a great year for him, and he was better than Brandon Belt in that season. So if he can find maybe a little bit of resurgence and regain that form, then maybe we could potentially revisit it. But I think the Jays are all in on Brandon Belt right now.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts are in the comments. Maybe we'll revisit this topic towards the trade deadline, depending what happens. But yeah, let us know. Let's get into the second topic, which was today's game. And of course, the Blue Jays did end up winning today's game 5-0, but it was a pretty boring game from the bat side. Of course, he did put up 5 runs, but it wasn't the best. And The bats have kind of been an issue recently, and I'll just pop up the box score here today. And Kevin Kiermaier went 0 for 3, Espinal went 1 for 3, Guerrero went hitless, and no one really hit the ball very well at all, besides the bottom half of the order towards the end with a Winton Brown RBI, Desan Brown RBI, and then of course a pinch hit RBI as well. I mean, what was your takeaways from today's game? And the reserves, the minor league guys ultimately got it done, but when talking about the major league bats, they were very, very asleep today, almost going hitless.
Hey, shout out to Desan Brand though, to Desan Brown. He hit that 3-run home
Yep,
run, absolute tape measure. He's he I wish he could have done that in the World Baseball Classic for Canada. He wasn't really given the chance, but he's an exciting prospect as well. And Winton Bernard's been quietly pretty good all spring long. He's been hitting the ball hard. Obviously, he's got that great speed in the outfield, got some good fielding ability out there, so he might be a dark horse for that final roster spot as well. We've been talking about Otto Lopez, Nathan Lucas, to a certain extent, maybe Addison Barger, Vinny Capra. Maybe we could throw Winton Bernard into the mix. He's more of a veteran guy. He's been around a little bit longer than those other guys that we mentioned, so that could be someone to look out for. But yeah, the bats have gone cold the past couple games. Vladdy is not, he hit one very hard
he
in
did.
today's game, and I think that was an expected 960 batting average.
Yeah,
So if the wind was not blowing in like it was in
crazy,
the
crazy.
Tigers field today, then he probably would have had another home run on his spring training tally. But it's all right. It's just spring training. I think the guys are bored. They want the season to start, and so do we.
Yeah, and it's the games are getting a bit long. I know some people, my friends are telling me that in real life, and I still watch, I still enjoy them. But Kevin Gausman, which we'll get into in a second, the pitchers are starting to ramp it up, and this is honestly probably a more important time for them because their arms need to ramp up more so than the hitters. As we saw, Brennan Belt's only going to get 2 weeks of spring training compared to some people getting months. But quick final touch on that. If you want to have a quick one more look at the box score, and the only regular major leaguer to get a hit today was Santiago Espinal there. So shout out to Kevin Kiermaier as well, still hitting 400 on the spring, despite I think going hitless in back-to-back games. But let's touch on Kevin Kiermaier now, or sorry, Kevin Gausman now. Getting the Kevin's mixed up. He was unbelievable today, but I do have a clip of his splitter, I believe, and I'll just let you touch on this before we get into anything else. And I'll pop up his stat line here. He went 5 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 6 strikeouts, another dominant outing with a 0 ERA throughout spring.
Guy's nuts. The guy's nuts. Now, his splitter is not only the best splitter in baseball, I think it might be the best pitch in baseball. And then call me a homer, call me biased, I don't care. That pitch is absolutely filthy. He was throwing it for strikes today. And the book on Kevin Gausman is that if you see the pitch low, lay off because it's probably a splitter below the zone and it's going to be a ball. But if he's throwing that for a strike and the hitter sees it as a low pitch, they're going to take it and they're just going to be frozen on a pitch at the knees. And he did that a couple times today. And he started to do that a little bit last season when other hitters were starting to figure him out. So he had some great outings to start the year. He didn't walk anyone for the first, I believe, 40 something innings
It's
that
a
he
lot.
pitched. It was nuts. It was crazy. But then the book got out on him. If it's high, it's a fastball. If it's low, it's a splitter and lay off. Don't swing at it because it's too filthy. So he's been mixing it in for strikes more often, and man, he is just in peak form right now.
Yeah, and he started to make that adjustment, like you said, towards the end of last year, starting to throw the strikes. And I remember, I think it was in the third inning or fourth inning, he got someone looking on a splitter that like it was nasty. The announcers made a comment. Tip had it. It was like on the outside corner. And I'll pop this one up here. This is an example of a splitter that is one that hitters are told to lay off. But when he's putting them in the zone at the knees the whole game, and that splitter you have to swing it at that point, especially with 2 strikes. And he's been the best pitcher for the Blue Jays in spring easily by a landslide, alongside Yusei Kikuchi, of course. And Kevin Gausman has been one of the best pitchers in all of the MLB, alongside Yusei Kikuchi again. But he's been unbelievable. And a quick shout out as well, we'll just pop it up here, to the bullpen today. It was very, very solid. Adam Simber, and very, very quickly, we can touch on Jay Jackson, who has quietly put up a very, very good spring, giving up no earned runs. And I saw a tweet right before recording saying that Jay Jackson might be an underrated potential add to the bullpen out of spring on the Major League camp. Do you have any quick thoughts on him before I touch on Gosman finally and wrap it up?
Yeah, he might be. He might be in the mix for that final spot in the bullpen as well. And similar to Winton Bernard in the outfield situation, Jay Jackson's a veteran guy. He's been around. He was on that great 2021 San Francisco team, and he played a vital role. I think he threw around 30 innings for them throughout the season. So he's battle tested. He's playoff tested, and he's a veteran guy that throws hard, that knows his way around the bigs. So it wouldn't be a bad shout to have him maybe throw some innings and eat some bullpen time out there. But Kevin Gausman, man, what more can we say on this guy? He's not only has he been one of the best pitchers in all of spring training, just in the past few years, his consistency has been off the charts with the Giants and now with the Blue Jays. He's an ace caliber pitcher in the number two spot in a great rotation for the Toronto Blue Jays. So I'm very excited to see what he can do this year.
Yeah, quick couple of tweets to wrap it up here. Keaton Mackison saying that Kevin Gausman got through 5 shutout innings and 86 pitches. And just to give you a quick overview of his spring, 13.2 innings pitched, 0 runs on just 8 hits, 3 walks, with the crazy number there, 18 Ks. So overall, a very, very impressive outing out of Kevin Gausman. The Blue Jays, of course, got the win. Hopefully, the regulars start to wake up before the regular season starts in spring training, of course. 10 days away till opening day, and we'll be covering everything for you. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks.